right, so today we're going to be painting our amazing clay owls that we created. We made these pinch pot owls out of our air dry clay, and with normal clay we would be using a special paint on our ceramic piece because I would have fired it, and we would be using our glaze, which is a special type of paint that sticks onto the clay, and I would have to fire it one more time. But because we're using our awesome air dry clay, what we're going to be doing is coloring it using our markers, or even crayons work well on this too. And I wanted to show you our marker watercolor technique. You could even use paints on it, but we can use our marker in a fun way. So what I wanted to show you is typically I can have a little cup, that I fill up with water and we can get it wet. But today I'm going to be using something that's called one of our water paintbrush pens. So this one's made by Arteza, but you can find these anywhere. Even my daughters even have the you just fill up with the water and it's got a little paintbrush and a design shows up on those activities that you can see. So how this works is right now I'm just gently going like this and there's no water on my hand. So what you do is pointing the brush down and give it a gentle squeeze, and now when I go to paint it, some water came out and you can see the water. So each time you don't want to squeeze and have lots of water coming down when you use these. This is just enough to get your paintbrush nice and wet. So what we're going to do, and I'll put this on this side, is I'm going to think of how do I want to color my owl. So to do that, my brush is nice and wet, and see what happens when your brush is wet. It makes your marker turn into paint. And you can go on it and you can paint your awesome owl in as many different ways as you want. So here I can have this, it makes a neat tie-dye effect, and I can go around, I can mix some colors. So if I put some purple on here, I can take my brush and I can get it this way and I can mix or let the areas dry. I could go in and make a pattern on my owl. And anywhere that it's wet, it's going to make this kind of star burst firework effect. But somewhere that's dry, it goes on nice and smooth. So however you want to make or decorate or draw your owl and paint it, you can. You could even take your marker, and when you just don't have it touch anywhere that's really wet, but you can add and draw on some different really fun lines and designs on here. Okay, so play with your owl however way you want to decorate it. You can do a mix and match where here I'm not going to use the water. I'm just going to put a nice dark layer, and then maybe I'll add a watercolor layer underneath of it. So decorate all on the front of your owl and the back of your owl. One last thing that I wanted to show you is, what if I did something that I didn't like? So maybe I wanted to do this tip and I'm going, oh, it's so hard to color it in, Mrs. Holland. That's okay. Use your paintbrush, get it wet, and look, it smooths it out, and it can get underneath the wing part that you have too. The brush will spread the marker all around it. Okay? So you can do multiple ways of decorating and creating your owl. All right? So again, areas that dry, if I wanted to even go back, I touch it first. Yeah, it feels like it's almost dry. I could add on special little dot details. Isn't that really cool? So I don't want you to rush as you're decorating this. Take your time and work in areas. You might end up with marker on you, and that's okay too. When you're done with your plastic bag, I need them back, as well as the paint brushes or your cup. And all you're going to do is take your Kleenex or a paper towel and you can wipe this off. And it also makes a cool little design there too. But that is what we're going to be doing with decorating our awesome owls today. one thing I wanted to mention as you're working on this is I'm working in stages. I let areas dry and then I could put marker on top of those areas. So as you saw, I let certain areas dry and I could go back into it. Any of the areas that you want to get inside these little holes, you just get the marker wet, but work one little step at a time. So here I can get the red wet and you can see that it goes in like that. Okay? Another strategy is as you're doing this, if you wanted to do a solid color, you can mix colors on your bag. So blue and purple can make like a pretty galaxy color. You can add a little bit of greens on here and then mix it together and then be able to paint it. But remember, you don't want to have this dripping paint anywhere because then it takes a long time for it to dry. Just like glue takes a while to dry. So once certain areas are dry and you touch it and it doesn't come off on your finger, then go in and go back over and add in some of those feather details, those extra little dots and things like that to really make it stand out. If you want to draw something where you've got like a little friend under here, like it's got its own little stuffy owl, you can do that too. And once we finish doing this, what I would like you to do is then draw what the home looks like for your little owl. Alright, so if you're done early with your owl and painting it, what you can do next is you can either have a piece of paper and we can make a little bird's nest for our owl, or if you have a paper bag, you can also turn that into something. So our paper bag, you'll see, has two sides when it's folded. You've got this side and then you have this side. So you want to go on this one side here, so that way you know where the bottom of your bag is. And what we're going to do is just cut it in half. So I'm going to cut it in half like this. And then you can open up your bag, right? So you can see how this looks. And what you're going to do is you're going to gently fold it. Going to roll it down. Make lots of noise. And there you go. So now you have a little nest made out of your paper bag, which is really cool, right? So now that I've got that, you can always put your owl inside. You can also use some leftover pieces of your bag, and you can cut it into strips if you want. So I'm going to cut this like this in here. You can also rip it, which is also fun too. I might actually do that instead. So ripping is a really good skill. Make sure you have one finger and another finger, one behind it, and you just kind of tear it and then pull. So by ripping it into all these little pieces, you can then make a little nest for your owl. Like this. Have all these cool little pieces in here and make a fun little nest. You can glue it down if you want. So if you have a glue stick, you can glue some pieces of it around the edges, and that'll make it look more realistic. You can also glue it where you lay it like this and lay another piece on top, and you can play with that as that way for your owl. The second option is to use a piece of paper, and what you can do is just roll up the edges. Here's one. I'm going to roll this little part here. And I'm going to roll the next corner, and then I'm going to roll this side, and then I'm going to roll the next corner in. So you're kind of rolling it in. keep rolling it in. And now I have a little nest for my owl. Keep them nice and safe. See, you just kind of roll each of the edges in. And now I've got that. And what you can do is using your markers, you could go in and you can do a bunch of different lines and make a nest for your owl. You could color it. Maybe you'll find a feather on here. Maybe it's a purple feather, right? You can draw all sorts of fun little things, make it fuzzy and furry. You know, did it find any yarn? A lot of birds like to find yarn and twigs and leaves and all sorts of fun things to put inside their nest. And then you can put your owl inside there. So play with either of these two options, and I can't wait to see what you make.